We begin today's conversations with top business headlines. And on top business headlines today, I have two picks. Nigeria's Presidential Tax Reform Committee seeks 95% tax exemption for informal sector. And the second one is World Bank to give Nigeria $2.25 billion loan in June. Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Asher Investments Limited, joins me for this. Hello, Mukhtar. Thank you for joining me today. Okay. Happy New Week.
Same here.
All right, so let me get your thoughts on the anticipated $2.25 billion World Bank loan to Nigeria.
Well, it's mixed feeling. We're getting the loans, but when you see those loans, we're excited about the loan. People are excited about it, but you need to look at the numbers. I mean, the conditions for those loans and what those loans are going to be used for. And you realize it's all about reforms, and some of these reforms are all about taxation, are all about revenue. The only social investment that has to do with the people is the 65 million Nigerians that may be collecting what they call is it I've forgotten the name they call it. Those are people that will be giving conditional cash. So outside of that, almost everybody is all about, oh, we do this to get this reform, for this reform, for taxes, it's all about improvement in terms of revenue for the government. Outside of that, I think those money are not just coming free for us. It might also come with a big cost in terms of cost of living, because again, especially with businesses, the 750 million, if you look at that, what's going to be invested also in making sure that those 41 buying items will be able to create a revenue of 54 point something million dollars from 11 point something million. And what it means is that there will be reduction. I mean, the price of those goods would definitely go up, especially the banned item. And remember that some of these banned items are items that we mostly use in our homes here in Nigeria.
However, this particular loan is to be distributed between two projects. You've talked about one of them, but let's look at both of them now. We have the Nigeria Reforms for Economic Stabilization to Enable Transformation. That's the Reset Development Policy Financing. And we have the other one, that's NG Accelerating Resource Mobilization Reforms, AMO. That's the Program for Results B4R. That's the $750 million that you talked about, which, of course, they said this is aimed at enhancing Nigeria's economic stability and resource mobilization capabilities. One of the questions one would want to ask is, how is this money going to engender resource mobilization capabilities? And what more do we need to know about these projects? And what impact will they have on Nigerians? I know you started talking about that, but more emphatically now.
Yeah, I think you see what they're trying to do is to strengthen revenue agencies. If you look at that report, it's all about strengthening the revenue agencies, because they think we are not actually getting more from our people in terms of revenue, especially tax. If you look at that report, they are also looking at the FIRS, thinking of also strengthening them for revenue. They are looking at custom and excise also. They are looking at VAT, that value added tax also should be increased. So it's all about strengthening those mechanisms for the improvement in the area of collections of those taxes. That is basically what this money will be. It might come in the form of technology. It might come in the form of manpower. It might come also in the form of other logistics to make sure that we have those revenues come in. So they will most central in revenue agencies to enhance their profitability. And in enhancing their profitability is to get more Nigerians to pay tax, which for me would be fantastic. But hope it's not coming with extra burden on the already burdened businessmen in this country. But again, taxes are part of government revenue. If you look at, like I said, most of this was trying to widen the tax bracket. And in widening the tax bracket, they want to look at the structural side of it. But again, it comes with a challenge, like I said, because it's going to affect a lot of vulnerable Nigerians. Because again, they still talked about removal of subsidy in every area. So it's it's a big challenge, but let's see what happens, whether the government will be able to navigate their way through other fiscal policy to reduce the burden of what we are going to see when we collect these loans from the IMF and the World Bank.
Well, of course, we also know that, the conditions are being finalized. But even while that is there are indications that the government may reinstate a previously suspended telecom tax and other fiscal measures as it seeks to secure the new $750 million loan from World Bank. Isn't this another burden on Nigerians? What do you make of it? Or is it, I'm looking at all of this. I heard what you said, Ella, and the first question that came to mind for me was, don't we think this is too expensive a price to pay, or is it just one of those difficult necessities that we just cannot explain away or run away from? That's almost like asking about 2 or 3 questions, but I know you get the drift, right?
Yes, you see, when it comes to this government, we're looking at revenue, and they've not been able to attract foreign investors. So now, if they were attracting foreign investors, then they will not be thinking about this. The challenge, you see, why they are so excited when you hear dollar coming into the economy, they think that's a means of boosting liquidity, especially in the FX market. That's the main reason why you see them. They're running to the World Bank, the IMF. They want to get this international donor agency so that they could be able to use this fund to stabilize the currency. And so it comes with a very huge tax. Like you've talked about the telecommunication tax. Remember, this was a project that should have been implemented sometime last year before the end of President Buhari's tenure. Then President Buhari wanted it, but the then Minister for Communication had to make a case for the communication company in terms of the high cost of investment they have done. And at that time, the exchange was even about 400 and something. But now looking at it again, here we are now thinking of imposing telecom tax. And here we are now telling the companies that they cannot hike their tariff. So if you look at the telecom sector, it's one sector that tariff has been very steady for a very, very long time. And when you see government trying to say, look, they want to stop people through the Consumer Protection Agency, and yet government is busy taxing people left and right, bringing up tariff. Thank God, finally, they've listened to the voice of wisdom, the suspension in the cyber security level. But again, when the government suspend a program in one hand, they try to go the other way around because they are now looking at this telecom tax. And that will definitely happen because, again, if you are collecting, that is the main condition for the $750 million that they are collecting from IMF. I mean, it's a World Bank.
Well, despite declarations by this particular government, saying that it will not continue with the massive borrowings of the previous government, I mean, are we not towing the same path? And doesn't that bother you?
It bothers me because, again, they came up with a notion that, like you said, they will not borrow. But now, you see, it's easy to talk. As always, the talk is cheap. Anyone can talk. When you go in there, then you begin to see the magnitude of the work that they have to do. And I remember when President Tinubu was campaigning, and then presidential aspirant of APC said that those in government were not thinking. And now, when they come, he will bring people that will be thinking. It seems that his own government are not even thinking at all, because they need to start thinking out of the box rather than just running hand, cap in hand, looking for aid left and right, looking for money to boost the economy. And they are not, because again, the good thing that they are looking at it is that most of this loan is not even going to be paid by them. Most of this loan will start being paid 10 years from now. At that time they have left. They are not even looking at the burden that they are putting the future of this country. So I think I have my fears about that again, but like I always say, what type of borrowing are we borrowing? Are we borrowing for developmental project or are we borrowing for consumption? It seems to be that this borrowing is for developmental project. But you and I know that in Nigeria, one of the bends that has made so much development project not to see the light and have the effect they normally have on the people is corruption. Hope this will not go the same way like every other.
We can continue talking about this particular one till the next 1 hour and we will not stop. But let's move on to the other headline now. And then I would like to just sort of join these things together. Now, this is coming at a time when the presidential policy, that's the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, is actually considering tax relief to 95% of the informal sector of the economy. And for me, I'm actually wondering, mine is, I'm wondering how the fiscal authority will be able to drive growth when, on the other hand, it's probably being stifled by federal government's reforms and policies.
Yeah, you see, I want to give kudos to the chairman of the tax reform committee. Is ticking the boxes, but again, it's a committee. His report will still go to the presidency, and from there they will now go up with the committee white paper report. So it could be a long way before we begin to see those results that we want to see. But again, I'm excited about 95%. I'll be about 95% in the informal sector. Everyone that doesn't make profit. I mean positive at about 20 million. But you shouldn't
25
forget that
million.
there was also a tax, yes, there was also a tax law that said that if your turnover is not up to 25 million in terms of turnover, 25 million, you're exempted from tax. So sometimes you see this thing comes up, they're already there, but maybe implementation is the major challenge. But again, what you need to ask yourself is how many of the informal sector are really in the tax bracket? So you need to entice them to even come to that bracket, because when we're talking about the informal sector, we are talking about the man that is selling on the street. We are talking about the barber that have a barbering salon. We are talking about the vulcanizer. We are talking about the mechanic. We are talking about the drivers. These are the key drivers of Nigeria. We're talking about those people that were selling food in. But when you look at all these people, how much have we been able to get taxes from them? Rather, what we have seen is that the government, especially local government and state government, have come up with ingenious way of getting taxes from them in terms of levy, because they know that this kind of businesses are not always very consistent in terms of profit making. And so I think what I expect the Presidential Task Force Committee to have done first is to get a lot of this informal sector into the tax bracket first, either through enlightenment, through provision. Then from there, we'll begin to look at this 95% exemption, because it's naturally most of them are not in that space.
Absolutely. Now, should this proposal be implemented, like you rightly said, even the committee chairman also mentioned that we already have laws that sort of exempt them. But should this be implemented, how impactful do you think it will be? And then should we also, you talked about the local government and the state governments to sort of take levies from them. Do you think it's also okay to probably stop these levies and all of that?
Yeah, like the reform chairman said, they were really talking to the states and the local government in that area, so that there won't be multiple taxation on the people. Hopefully that will see the light of the day. You just need to go through the street of Lagos and you begin to see the way people are being asked to pay levies, especially small SMEs and this kind of informal sector. So I say they are liaising with the government. Hopefully governors, through the governors forum, hopefully they will see the light of the day. So, but again, like I said, yes, if this comes on stream, it's good for businesses, because that will bring down cost of doing business, cost of production. So that could help also drive down price. But again, the challenge we have is that what you seem to gain in one hand, you lose in the other hand. You could be seeing that, and then you are paying so much for the same good because power is not available, transport network is not available, and the CBN is hiking rates, so the cost of funding have gone up. So these are things that are beyond the control of the tax committee or the fiscal committee, especially when it comes to monetary policy. So, but it's a good thing. This is the first time Nigeria is beginning to look at tax as a means of growing the economy, which I've always canvassed for. We shouldn't always just look at tax as we want to use for revenue. Sometimes you need to look at tax as a means to grow your economy. And I think they are taking, like I said, the chairman of the tax committee seems to be taking the right buttons, but hopefully the white paper, the committees that will be set up to look at the white paper will come up with those recommendations on time, so that we can hit the ground running, because it's almost a year, it's still talk, no action.
All right. Well, just like you put it, they are not the ones to implement. They will make recommendations, and we hope that those things will be implemented. But just before you go, I'd like you to talk about this. I mean, we've been talking about revenue generation, and then we're looking at tax revenue generation and all of that. But for you, what do you think the government should be doing to sort of shore up Nigeria's revenue generation?
I think the biggest problem, and I think one thing that would take the bus for the government, one thing that would be a game changer is if they can get the informal sector. The informal sector drives 80% of Nigerian economy. And if 80% of that sector is not captured in the tax net, there's no how you get revenue. So I think what the government need to do is to come
Mukhtar,
up with
let me come in
ways.
here. Let me come in here. We have a situation where the chairman is saying we need to exempt these people, and here you are saying we need to capture them. Why are we capturing them? For the purpose of exemption or for inclusion?
When you capture them on the net, remember that these businesses are good. Some of these businesses do way over 20 million in terms of profits. So when you get them in the net first, then let them see the value of taxation first. Then again, you shouldn't forget that some of these businesses also employ a lot of Nigerians. Remember, their exemption is in the company income tax area in terms of their income and whatever. But in terms of the personnel, most of these personnel are also not being catch in the tax bracket because there are people that are being given daily payment and also all this. If you capture it and they see the value in terms that you are bringing to the table, that's why I say value. There must be value for them because why you don't have a lot of Nigerians paying taxes because Nigerians do not trust the system in terms of the value the system will bring commensurate with the amount of money they are giving because that has been the major challenge. So break that gap of trust. When he is saying that most of them will not, he knows what he's saying because he knows that most of these companies, very few of them do below 20 million. A lot of them do a lot. The other ones that are not really doing anything, doing that is maybe the vulcanizer, the hairdresser, the taxi driver. But when we're talking about people that do so much volume, how much of tax do the people that sells car pay? How much of tax do the people that are involved in little import here and there pay? So those are all in the informal sector. You need to capture them, but in capturing them, you must create value for them to key into that value, and from there you can begin to tax.
Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Asher Investments Limited. Thank you for your time and your thoughts on the show today.
My pleasure.